Hey, hello, good neighbors. What's going on? It's Phil Russert, Philbo Publishing Presents, which used to be Creator Con. We moved it over. We rebranded for the sake of publishing. Anyway, hope you all had a good weekend and a great holiday, and the grind is not too bad for you starting on this Monday. But we've got a good show tonight because we've got a really successful up-and-coming creator that's been doing some great stuff. And he's what the indie comics industry needs because he's putting out quality content, quality art. He really has a passion and care for the storytelling, and that's really what we want and we need to help growing reader fan bases and really strengthening the indie community. So very, very excited to talk with him today. I've gotten to work with him, and good dude, and really came out of the gates firing, and I'm very proud of him. Without further ado, Vaughn Coleman.
Thank you, man. Thank you for the introduction. It's great talking with you like this, and it's great. Obviously, I got to thank you. I mean, I can now say, like, going in, I could be like, well, it's actually not my first work. I've done work, and I could show people that. So that's always great. Also, I mean, the fact that I was able to do some work before, you learn, you make mistakes as you do, and it gives you the chance to try again. And that's always something special.
Well, trial and error is honestly the best educator to me, right? I mean, get in there, get your hands dirty, and learn from what worked, what didn't work. But I don't know if you saw in the intro, Land of the Lawless is
I appreciate that.
So now you can let's go back to your roots as far as where did you start out in comics? Were you actually being a part of production or creating?
Yeah, so I mean, my first work when it came to being into comics was, so I was in college at the time, and I went to a USC summer filmmaking program, and my friend there, Hunter, his dad, it turned out, was starting a comic company. I was like, dude, like, I love comics. Like, what do you? Is there any way I can get involved? And he was like, I'll think about it. And I obviously kept bothering him, and I was like, bother your dad, whatever. See. And so his dad had seen some of my short films, and he liked it, and he thought I had like a good sense of storytelling, and so he brought me on. The book was mostly done. He was like, Vaughn, I want your feedback on this. I like your storytelling. Here we go. And so this was my first published work, was Hunter Ninja Bear. I was an editor on this book.
Nice. And by the way, it's written by Chuck Dixon, who's one of my favorite all-time writers, and great book, great art.
Yeah, I mean, to start, I remember being on the phone, and I swear I was on the phone, and my boss was talking about comics. I go, yeah, I hear one of my favorite writers, Chuck Dixon, does a lot of indie stuff these days. He goes, yeah, you're going to be working on Chuck's books. Like, of all the people I could have mentioned, it just happened to be that way. And I was like, there's no way. And it's an amazing, I mean, Mel Ruby, I had never heard of him, and I immediately was like, I got to read some more of his stuff. So I bought some of his Red Sonja. Rob Hunter's great. I mean, the whole creative team was just amazing.
Oh, the book is top notch, and the artwork is gorgeous. It's a great book. So to get a credit on that your first time out, especially with those names, that's awesome.
It was surreal, and I definitely rode those coattails. I mean, that was something really special, because I went from nobody to, I edited a book for Chuck Dixon, and that was something. And it's funny, I still haven't met Chuck. I'd love to. But, that was something special. And there was a few times, like there was one scene in particular. I mean, it may not be my favorite scene in the book, but it has a special place where I gave this note for, you should add a training scene here. And then I remember going back through, and I was like, oh, my God, like my stuff got implemented. It was just, it was cool. Great.
Isn't that a nice feeling?
It's a great feeling.
That's the thing about Chuck that I like, being an industry professional. And not just in comics, the guy's writing successful novels. It's about to be put into a movie even.
Yeah.
He's even worked with Sylvester Stallone. But he treats everybody with the same respect when he works with you. I've interviewed him a few times. I've talked to him on the side. And honestly, the guy he's just one of the good ones in the industry. And he really cares about the medium, and he shows the same level of respect across the board. So shout out to Chuck Dixon. And his writing is just top notch. I mean,
absolutely. And I got to get him on my show. I've been because you know what it was is, honestly, I was afraid to have him on because it was like, I don't think I've read enough of his. I've read tons of his stuff, but I was like, I haven't read all of Nightfall yet. I haven't read
Really?
ongoing. I know, and I'm a huge Batman fan. I kept putting because it was so intimidating. But now that I'm almost done with Claremont's X-Men run, it's nothing to me. Like, it's just like baby's first comic book now.
Yeah, see, and this is the one area where I have the luxury of being old. I was there when it all happened, so I was reading it as we were going. I didn't have to catch up, 30 years of history.
Oh, 30. I'm going back to the 70s. I'm going to the 60s. I'm catching up on. I was getting schooled, yesterday on my show. Oh, you didn't know this. Like, I remember I was reading Crisis on Infinite Earths and talking to people. And, like, when people in my generation read that book, half the time we're like, who are all these people? But everyone who grew up during that time, I'm not saying they knew who everyone was, but, they had a better understanding than we did.
But see, that's good for you because I always say whether you're a basketball player or a writer or whatever, knowing the history of your industry, I think, is key and is important. So it's good that a young guy like you wants to invest in that, and that's just going to make you even more successful, in my opinion.
I'm totally in agreement, and that was the same way I was with film. I'd go back and look at older movies too, and then comics. Because it's not even just that; it's looking at the history of these characters. I wanted to understand where they came from. I was never really a guy that would go to the shelf and grab stuff. I'd look up best Batman stories.
Right.
And now as I get older, I'm having people around me tell like, Vaughn, you got to read this run. Vaughn, you got to read this. And I take note. My reading list is very long. Like just before this, I was reading Marvel Comics Presents X Factor, or not X Factor, Excalibur, wrong X Team.
I love the Excalibur run. Nightcrawler is my favorite character, so that's just all up my alley.
Design-wise, he's my favorite. My top 3 X-Men are probably Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Shadowcat. So having 2 of those 3 was great, and I wish they kept that Shadowcat costume from Excalibur. I think. I
agree. And those are 3 of my favorites. Cyclops was right, but anyway.
Cyclops. There's so many people, and I notice it's a thing. There's specifically Cyclops fans don't hate Wolverine. But Wolverine fans have an irrational hatred for Cyclops. And I don't get it. I like both characters.
Because the good guy finally got the girl. They can't have that.
Well, he had him before Wolverine even showed up. He had her in the back.
Right.
And then they're Wolverine fans like, no, it's like, no, you're wrong. You're objectively wrong. Like,
well, to me, Cyclops is the Captain America of the X-Men world. I mean, he's the strategic brain, and I think he's an underrated character. So is his brother. But
Havoc is criminally underrated.
Yeah, and I'm friends with Larry Stroman, and Larry designed the redesign of Havoc for X Factor, the second team that came in X Factor, and I love both versions. But I thought what Larry did was really a great risk-taking thing. He made him like this '90s colorful out there with the fingerless gloves and the jacket, and I just thought it was cool. It was bombastic, but it was fun. It was cool. But
Havoc has one of those costumes where it either looks, the original I'm talking, where it looked either really goofy or really cool, entirely depending on who drew it. Like
I agree. Well, because of that headpiece,
he looks stupid. Yeah, like there were certain issues where I was like, this looks like a whisk or like something in your kitchen. And other issues, I'm like, that looks awesome. Like when Silvestri drew him, he looked cool the whole time.
Well, because he kept it smaller, right? It's like when they drew it big, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, I think it was like I love Cockrum, but there were sometimes I want to say it was either Cockrum or Byrne made him look weird. I forget which one of them.
It was probably Byrne actually.
Byrne, yeah.
Now in that Claremont 17-year Claremont run, what would you say is your favorite X-Men storyline? Like, what was your favorite run?
I'm almost done with it. So I'm reading all the spin-offs, so that's why it's taking me long. Because it used to be I could plow through years. Right. And now it's like, between issue 160, I follow a reading order, and it's like between 168 and 169, you have to read this many X Factor, this many, Marvel Comics Presents, this, so, but last one I read was Madripoor Night, so that gives you an idea of where I'm at, like 268. So I have I'm close to the end. Okay. But, so Dark Phoenix is a very obvious answer, so I'm not going to go with it. For
me, it was the Brood Saga and the Mutant Massacre.
I was going to say Mutant Massacre.
They're just phenomenal.
If I were to ever make an X-Men movie, I'd do Mutant Massacre because it's such a simple It's literally just the X-Men. It's so simple. It's the X-Men have to protect mutants from a gang of evil mutants. That's it. But it's so I love it. I think everyone remembers that iconic moment with Colossus where he grabs Riptide and he's like,
Yeah.
no more. And he just
And in shadow and silhouette, he just snap. Yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing. I think Mutant Massacre. I love Inferno because they took such an insane. Inferno was a story that could only work in a comic book.
Right.
And only across multiple. He took something that, if I were to describe the event, it doesn't sound like it works. Like when my friend was describing, oh, wait till you get to this, and I'm like, this sounds stupid. But then when you read it, it works.
Right.
But I think.
So you haven't gotten to Executioner's song yet.
Oh, Executioner's song I haven't.
That's good too.
I'm about to get to Extinction Agenda. So like Cable just showed up.
That's very good.
I'm about to get to the next issue I have is Rogan the Savage Land is the next issue I'm going to read.
Right.
So
just good stuff. They don't write them like that anymore, I swear. But
they don't.
The good news is we have people like yourself who are writing stuff like that again because you appreciate and love that. So that's why I think it's great for people like you to be in the industry now, up and coming, and putting out books that make you want to read again. You know, I mean, the older statesmen have been getting away from comics, I think, because of the new writing styles they don't like. And I think books like yours is something that they would want to pick up.
I'm totally in agreement with you. I think that there's a lot of, it just a lot of stuff on the shelf. I walk in and I remember I was talking to someone on Free Comic Book Day. Actually, I saw you and I was with someone else who was a much older fan, and we both looked at each other and go, even when they're giving away free Marvel stuff, we didn't want it. Like they literally couldn't give it away for free. I wasn't, and it's because obviously I'm kind of a fan, and it was like, it was kind of a moment that, made me realize. And another thing too, like I love X-Men, and everyone was telling me House and Powers of X. This Vaughn, you got here, and
I didn't like it at all.
I liked it at first because I knew, oh my God, the X-Men are going to be brainwashed because there's no way they would do this. There's no way they're this out of character. This is weird. And then I kept going, and I was like, okay, that's weird. That's weird. Okay, when's the reveal come? Oh, they're not mind controlled. They really believe this stuff now. Okay, count me out. It was
and
like,
the pod people thing. There was no risk. There was no stakes.
Yeah, no stakes at all. And look, people obviously would come back all the time, but even then, like when Storm lost her powers, those 40 issues, and you felt her pain, right?
Yeah.
Or Banshee when he lost his powers, that was like 100 issues. When even if they weren't dying all the time, when people would get hurt, it would have consequences.
There would be impact.
That's part of why I like Mutant Massacre, right? That one issue, Nightcrawler is put in a coma, Colossus is put in a coma, Shadowcat is put in an intangible state. And
they got messed up, man.
Yeah, and then because of that, the roster had to change. And so I miss comics like that. I think the problem is they think, oh, adding stakes means you just have to kill characters. It's like, no, they have to be really edgy. Everyone has to be like the Punisher or Batman has to kill people, with the Snyder stuff. It's like, that's not what superheroes are. And I felt like when I was writing this, I wanted to dig down to the core, and I'm like, all right, if I were to do the ultimate love letter to superheroes, what would it be? And so I would look to the masters that came before me and learn from them. And I think that's a problem. A lot of creators today, it's either they're intimidated by the history, or they just straight up don't care, and they'd rather just read a Wikipedia article or watch a YouTube video. And I used to do that too. But then I got older and I realized that, okay, if I were to go through these X-Men characters' history in a Wikipedia page, first of all, way less interesting. Second of all, because I had one friend I was arguing with who was telling me, yeah, I know all this lore. I don't even have to read the comics. I go, all right, what's this character's personality? He goes, what do you mean? I go, all right, you'd say you know all this lore, right? Because you read, I'm like, how does this character interact with this character? What's their friendship like? And he goes, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, because you can't get that from a Wikipedia article. You can't tell me about the times Nightcrawler and Wolverine would go out for drinks, or how Colossus was the kid of the group. You can't get that on the.
Or how about key moments like when Wolverine was forced to stab Rachel Summers?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was, I agree with you. But, that just goes to, too, there's a lot of people that don't understand when it comes to writing that, I'm writing a certain time period, or I'm writing a certain character. There's research involved. You don't just, it's not just sitting at a campfire. You're you have to kind of research some things. You have to understand the time period and how people spoke, how they dressed, or the cultures.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim O'Reilly, what's going on?
Yeah, I like, for example, there's one panel of a scene in issue 2, which I've already written, and already I got a cover thumbnail for. And
Hey, Saeed.
how you guys doing? And I would be like, okay, let me look into the backstory of these cultures. Let me do this, blah blah blah. Where I'd be like, all right, here's some ninja weapons, and I throw it to my Arsbic. He'd be like, no, I came up with a different one. That's a blend between these two you listed. And I'm like, that's awesome. That kind of research and stuff, that's key to writing. But even then, my whole thing is, so I'm doing my own world, right? And I would expect if someone comes into my world, they have to know the history, they have to understand, we have to have a long conversation. Likewise, if I'm writing in someone else's world, it is my duty to make sure that my values check at the table. I'm not saying that doesn't come through in my writing, it does, but
Right.
that my goal would be furthering what the characters are, what they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do. And I was talking to Chris Claremont at Heroes Con, and he said that whenever he was writing X-Men, his whole thing, he was always making sure he was honoring Stan and Jack, and he was like, a lot of writers today don't. I mean, Kitty
Right.
Pryde named her superhero team after the Marauders, who committed a genocide and
almost wiped her out.
Yeah, and put her in an intangible state and traumatized her. I'm like,
And that's
make sense.
And that's the problem. Like when you look at Claremont over 17 years, any changes that happened to characters seemed natural and gradual, and it was a natural progression because as humans we change. Right now, I think, especially with writing staff changing so often, everybody wants to write their version of the character. Mm-hmm. But I hate to say this, there is the version of the character. Not your version, the version. Like Peter Parker is Peter Parker. That's the point. Yeah. And you can have him evolve as a character, but it has to be natural.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that was like, for example, if I were to say, Cyclops lost to Storm when he had powers, she had no powers, you'd be like, that's crazy. But everyone who read that issue, 201, you could read it in context of all the times and you go, yeah, it makes sense that she would win that fight because he was thinking about his kid. His mentally was not there. She was razor focused. He wasn't sure if he even wanted to stay on the X-Men.
And she had a lot to prove.
Yeah. And so it makes sense, but it feels like one of the reasons why I used to be afraid of diving into these long runs. So I'd read Long Halloween, Batman Hush, all these shorter stories. I was afraid of diving into these longer runs, and I'm glad I'm doing it now. Because now it's almost like a weird thing where I'm afraid to go back, but it's like the consistent voice. But even when Claremont wasn't writing X-Men, right, it was still like Louise Simonson, you knew they were talking to each other and they understood this is what the character would do. Like, okay, Archie Goodwin did some Wolverine stuff. You know that he talked to Claremont, right? Like that you could tell there was a consistent voice. And that's one of the things I love about comics and what I can't stand. And I'm not saying you can never do multiverses. There have been, but multiverses feel like a cop-out of, I don't want to write the character, so I'm just going to write the character, but not do the character, or I'll just, and it bothers me. But another reason why I think a lot of talented writers, like I am a huge X-Men fan, right? But if they asked me to write current X-Men, I'd be like, man, I'd have to retcon everything basically they've been doing recently to even stomach it. Like, Kitty Pryde was acting more like a teenage brat than when she was a teenage girl. I'm like, what is happening? They dematured.
I agree, and they also turned her into a butchy character, like you
drunk.
Yeah, exactly. For some reason, writers these days think that for a woman to be strong, she has to be the worst qualities of a man.
Yes, the worst qualities always.
I don't get it.
And that's why, and I think Wonder Woman is a character. Like, if I were to write any few characters, one of the ones I'd actually love to write the most would be Wonder Woman, because I think, how often do you hear about like definitive Wonder Woman runs? Like, I know I need to read Perez's, that's one, but it's like, okay, they revamp her origin story constantly.
Yep.
They revamp Cheetah's origin. I remember I was like, what's her origin? And there was like 20 different origins for Cheetah. I'm like, can you just pick one? Stick with it. All right. Like, can you imagine if so Cyclops has an origin that they just keep adding to, right? But he had an origin. Imagine if they're like, oh, he wasn't actually an orphan. He might have, just, okay. I'd rather have one very complicated backstory than 500 different backstories. That's worse. And it's why I think people, when I remember, like, I've talked to people who write Hawkman, I'm like, how do you even approach that?
I know.
It feels like,
Well, look at Sabretooth. He has adamantium. He doesn't have adamantium in his bones. He's the better version of Wolverine on a physical level, or he's not. He gets beheaded how many times? It's just that's a character that could have been amazing, and they just keep thinking they ruined him. Sabretooth, they don't know how to write him. They don't know how to write him.
I haven't. It was really interesting going back too, because so I had grown up on the movies and TV shows and stuff, and going back and reading these characters as they were originally made me realize, my perceptions were of how these characters were is a little different. Like Wolverine, what's shocking, the most shocking thing about Wolverine to me is the fact that I have read 16 years worth of Wolverine, and they've never once mentioned amnesia. Because I thought that was the core of his character. Apparently, that's a retcon, right? Because I mean, they have never once, even in Weapon X, they don't mention memory wiping.
He's been retconned several times. I mean, issue 50 of his original solo series touched on things, and then they had the Weapon X series, and then they retconned. Then they had the Wolverine Origins, which kind of really went off on another thing, which was interesting, but I don't think it was necessary. Sometimes you don't need to know, in my opinion. But
yeah, the way they would do his backstory all the time was it was almost like he wouldn't bring it up. Someone else would bring something up. Like, for example, they go to Japan. He speaks Japanese. And they go, "You speak Japanese?" He's like, "Oh, you didn't know about that?"
Right.
Like, or Nick Fury comes up. "I have a mission. You remember me?" It's like, "Oh, I didn't." Like they approach it like, "Oh, you didn't know this? Well, here's the backstory," and that's how they would approach it, which I found so interesting. And it would really, like I said, learning from the masters that came before me and how they would approach characterizations.
Part of the problem is when you're reaching 1,000 issues, 1,200 issues, 1,500 issues, you've probably said everything you can say about these characters. I mean, what else can you say at this point? And that's got to be tough to continue telling a story and trying to do something fresh and not stale without ruining everything. And I just don't think they've found that balance at this point where they can write something new and exciting about them without having to either retcon or insult the character, or change the character abruptly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I'm totally in agreement. It's tough. But like that's why I wanted to take that energy and those ideals and that and my own characters and start a new world. Because you might be sick of those. And I think people say there's superhero fatigue. I don't agree with that. I think maybe the same characters, but I think people want superhero stories because it's inherently tied into the human condition, right?
If superheroes were burnout, then manga wouldn't be doing well because it's all like superpowered people just in a different way.
Yeah, I think it's like what I wanted to do is start a new world, start with one character, build it. And that's what I went for,
Yeah, and we're going to get into your characters now because, let's start with the Land of the Lawless. You started. Yeah. You had a concept. You put it out. It was published as a 10-page preview story.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a story I'd love to continue, but it was like I had a mood and I had a drive to get this story going. And my plan with Phenomenova is to keep it going. And then if I am able to add other stuff to my line while it's going, fine. But I want it to be my concept, my Uncanny X-Men. If I decide to do other titles, that's fine. But Land of the Lawless I had this opening sequence that kicked, it totally kicked ass. And I was like, this is great. And I knew that this is a kind of book that will sell inherently. But the thing is, I remember I came up with the initial concept. And I was like, okay, so she's a hot chick with a gun, whatever. And she goes through Futuristic West. But I was like, I will get bored if she's just hot and that's all there is to her. Right. I'll get bored as a writer. As an artist, you could do that for issues and issues and issues and issues, right? Always have fun. As a writer, I'll go and if I don't have themes, if I don't have a great story, I'm going to lose it. And so I had to think about what does she value? What does she want? and where does the story go? And so I have a whole story planned I'd love to do, but I remember I came up with this at college. I was writing it initially I came up with it as a comic book idea. And then I came up with it, and then I turned it to screenplay. And then I never finished the screenplay, but for an action movie class, I wrote the first 40 pages of the screenplay. And then I heard about your contest, and I was like, the opening sequence, that could be a 10-pager. And so I turned it back into a comic book, or turned it from screenplay into a comic book script. And then I was like, okay, that's 13 pages. What can I cut? Okay, this is this. Okay, there we go. We're at 10 pages. And that was that.
And it came out great. And you I think have a good understanding of the comic book medium, how important the art brings in the reader and draws them, and then the writing keeps them. And I really believe that. And I think you did a good job with what I saw of Land of the Lawless. Now moving on, to Phenomenova. Now we're going to show the campaign that's going on. You had a very successful Fund My Comic campaign, so congratulations on that. You came out of the gates guns blazing, pun intended. Tell us the inspiration Phenomenova, and then tell us about Phenomenova.
So Phenomenova was an idea I came up with when I was a kid. I was in second grade, and before I had started reading comics, I got into it through the movies, and I loved writing. I loved not writing necessarily, but always coming up with my own ideas, and it's lit a spark in me. The early X-Men movies and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, I would say my earliest inspiration. Specifically, the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, which is why it was actually perfect timing. That movie came back into theaters the week I launched my campaign. Just cosmic coincidence. And I watched that in theaters, and I'm like, yes, this was it. I would pull from that movie so heavily because I adored it. I adored this movie. Yeah, so and I remember I came up with my own. I for some reason I had this. I don't know why it bothered me as a kid, but I'd be like, the Flash is a lightning bolt symbol, but he doesn't have lightning powers, just super speed. And I was like, well, what if I made a character who had both? And of course, as a kid, I was like, well, I'm gonna play the main character. So that's why the character ended up looking like me as a kid, is because and then that look just kind of stuck. But I had come up with that. And I had come up with a whole team of heroes. Initially, the character's name was Lightning Lad, which as a second grader, I thought was a great original name, which is why I was heartbroken to find out that it was original maybe in the 1950s before someone took it.
Right.
And coming up with a new name for a lightning-based hero was a monumental task. I was like, okay, Living Lightning, taken. Lightning Lord, taken. Lightning, taken. Everything was taken. And I had to I went into like this manic state where I was like, I'm not leaving this room until I come up with a new lightning name. I'm not allowing myself to do anything. No, I'm not going out. I know it's a Saturday night. I need to do this. And the same thing was true when I had to come up with a new title. But I came up with Galvanite as the new name. But this is an idea I had for a movie and then a series of movies. I remember I'd always write down, here are the supporting characters, the other heroes. Here are the villains. This would be the villain of this. And then as I started getting into series like Justice League, like Young Justice, and at comics, I started to realize that, hey, maybe a serialized format is better. So I switched to I wanted to make an animated series. And then as I was in college, for film, funny enough, then I started reading Claremont's run and seeing how they do idea after idea after idea after idea. And I said, this is perfect, because I was always had to tone down my big budget ideas for films. And I was like, well, then I heard about independent comics and how you could own your own stuff and just you pay the artist and that's your budget, is what you can afford to have someone draw. And I was like, this is great. Like I can now, as a writer, I could churn out my ideas. And it helped that I'm not just writing to get picked up by Hollywood, because ultimately now, if it doesn't get turned into a film, no big deal, because I love comics. I adore this medium and I don't want it to die. And what was great was I remember turning it from that like script for an animated series, because I'd written as a screenplay a few times, into the comic book. And there was this one moment where this one character just puts something in a box and puts it under a desk. Now in a screenplay, you would just write that. But as I'm writing it in panels, I'm like, wait, so would I do it open in shut? Like, that's 4 panels. That's a lot. And I thought, and it was a little moment like that made me realize how different comic book storytelling is from film. And that's such a little aspect like that, and how much page space you want it to have says something. And it made me like appreciate all these little moments, and it made me realize that there's some stuff you can do in a film you can't do in a comic, but there's some stuff in a comic you can't do in a film. And it made my love for both mediums grow. You know, and I really love that. I love that that you could it's I don't know, it just, there's something about, I feel like when you write in a medium, you don't want your comic book to read like someone who just wants to get into Hollywood.
Right.
If you're making a comic, you have to love comics. And I do. I love it. I adore this medium. And so basically issue 1 is like the origin story of my main character. You know, and I really decided, so Phenomenova is going to be the name of the team. So this is the next generation of heroes that is going to be joining. But I decided ultimately that I was going to focus on, there's too many indie books, I feel like, where they're just, I have all these ideas, let me throw them all. And I'm like, no, have one idea stick, one character stick, and then I'll earn the next couple. Let's really make sure you give him a solid origin story. We'll focus on him. It's just basically he's a boy who discovers he could be a superhero. I said back to basics, but I wanted him to be I decided, my friend had told me, do something different with your superhero world. And so I thought about it. And then I was like, well, what if there was a World War III before this? Like, what if superheroes fought in World War III, heroes and villains? And so 20 years before this, there was a World War III that happened, and now we're living in the aftermath. And it's kind of, this kid is looking at the legacy of the brave heroes that came before, and now he has to live up to that. He's inspired by that. And I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I guess that's kind of how I feel, you know, writing comics, is I look at all these masters that came before me, and it's like, now it's my turn to carry on the torch. And this main character, you know, he'll stumble a lot. And it's funny, as I was coming up with the backstory for the world superheroes in World War III, I was like, this has got to be a series. So that's another series I plan on doing, is, you know, Crusader Corps would be the name of it. It would be set during World War III and would follow superheroes fighting their way through the war.
Very cool. The artwork is fantastic. This panel right here is awesome. That's just beautiful.
Thing about that, so I'm on 3 different platforms: Kickstarter, Fund My Comic, Indiegogo. If we hit 15K, everyone will get that as a mini print.
That is, yeah, I remember seeing that post, and I was like, wow, that's phenomenal. Who is the interior artist?
So Philip Cruz and Jesse Hagee. And by the way,
Jesse's a great colorist.
I think you were one of the guys that recommended him. I had multiple people direct me to Jesse, and because I've been going through a few colors, and there were some good ones, but I was like, I needed there's a lot of colorists that I think, you know, either they have to mesh, right?
Right.
Like, there are great colorists who just don't fit with
your art, right?
And it's also, there's some colorists that overdo it, that make it a style that it just wasn't, that overshadow the pencils. And what I like about Jesse's stuff is he brought the work to another level, but he also was very, I would say, loyal to the art, if that makes sense. Like, he never felt like he was just overpowering the pencil and the inker. And the book is almost done being colored. It's fully penciled and inked. It's mostly lettered by, so my Land of the Lawless letterer.
Yeah, George Medina. I hooked you up with him too.
Yeah, he like I said, you have to. So George, I was like, he lettered me once. He could do it again. And man, letterers, good friends to have as writers. And he added the logos to this cover. He added the credits. I gave him the logo placement. So I'm like, George can do. I could probably pop up in Photoshop and add all this, but I was like, I'd rather get a professional. I'm not going to have these guys do this great penciled, inked, colored art just to have me just throw I'll pay for the logos, and then I'll pay someone to arrange them right. And the corner box logo was done by my buddy Bobby. I just said, oh, I don't have an issue number, add that. And he went above and beyond. He made it a lightning bolt. He drew that. And then George, if you'll notice across the covers, the that corner box logo is colored a little bit differently to fit with everything.
Yeah, no, it's great. And the logo looks great. You know, a lot of people don't understand the importance of your title logo. It has to be legible. You know, some people try to be so edgy that they don't realize it's not legible. sometimes less is more, and this is a good logo. It's a solid, strong looking logo. I mean, look at the X-Men logo, the Avengers when they had the arrow through the A. They're iconic, but they
Yes.
weren't anything bombastic. They weren't crazy, you know. Sometimes simple is, sometimes less is more.
Well, it's also with a name like Phenomenova. We had decided that it needed to just be legible, and that O, what he did with the O, it needed to. So that's why you have the ends. It's like it makes a tough name easily digestible.
Yes,
and that's what I liked about it.
I agree. I agree very much. So yeah, this is my favorite cover. I'm going to be backing the Kickstarter, and this is the one I'm going to pick. I like this cover a lot.
A lot of people do. And that was funny. That was exactly what I envisioned, and he delivered on it. I remember because initially I did envision he had a like not a smug look, but like a this is awesome, like a confident look holding the crystal. That's what I initially envisioned. And he drew that, but I didn't ask him to draw that. I said, draw him holding the crystal getting struck. And he drew that. It was exactly what I had envisioned. But I said, just try another, let's do another thumbnail of just him screaming holding it. And I was like, nope, my original idea was right. And his original idea was right.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's great because if in the book itself he's obviously freaking out, but this just said everything I needed to say. It was a simple cover. I think every cover today is a group shot, and I love those. But they don't all need to be that, the simple one.
Well, it's like I said, less is more. I do like the manga style, and I do like the homage to Final Fantasy and stuff too, of course. But I think that first one's the one I like best. Very cool. And how many pages is this first book?
This is 65 pages of story, 68 total. So because there's one, I wanted to do like a page dedicated to my dad. I wanted to do add some credits, although I am doing the opening credits thing that Marvel used to do where they'd have it on the page.
The first page, yeah. I've been thinking about that.
I was at first like not sure, although I did write it that way, and then I saw it, George did it, and I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So I am doing that, but there's a couple other people I want to credit, so I'm going to have that. Most importantly, so at this Sunday is the cutoff date for the Phenomenova fan art contest, where the winning piece will get their piece published in the book. So
very cool.
Make sure you get that. And I've had some great stuff. And there's something about other people drawing your characters unpaid. Paid too. Obviously, it's really special.
No, but because they want to draw. Yeah, listen, I get a lot of fan art too, and it's flattering every time someone likes the character that they want to draw them. It's a wonderful feeling. I'm with you on that. And it's not like you don't want to pay artists, but the fact that they'd want to draw the character, not for profit, not for the job, but because they just appreciate the character is a wonderful thing. So, okay, we've got the different covers, and you said it's 68 pages?
Yeah, 68-page book. 65 of them are story, and then there's just like the extra, like the fan art page, like I said, and other stuff like that. But yeah, 68-page book.
I'll tell you, $20 is not a lot of money for a 68-page book at all.
Not. And then the variant covers are going to be the campaign exclusive, and I don't mean Kickstarter because they're available on FundMyComic and Indiegogo as well.
Crowdfunding exclusive.
So, and it's more like a pre-order, honestly, because it is funded. But yeah, you won't be able to get the variants after this. They're priced $5 more, but they are more exclusive. So if you want them, definitely get those because they won't be available on my website where the main cover will. And I mean, every variant cover has been outstanding.
Yeah, I agree. But again, it's like I said, one of the things I appreciate about you is you understood the equal balance of importance between quality art and quality writing. A lot of people always think one is heavier than the other, and I disagree. They have to be in sync. They have to be equal because, yes, the art brings them in, but the writing keeps them. So they both have to be equally strong, and I think you have a good blend, a good balance.
Yeah, I had this artist for months before. He was like ready to work. And I was like, hold on. Because I didn't think my script was worthy of his talents yet. He liked it, but I said, no, I could do better. And so I rewrote it, And finally, I hit a point where I was like, I can't keep. I gotta just pull the trigger eventually. Because here's the thing. Obviously, my first issue is my first impression, so I want it to be good. But it's also, if my first issue is my best issue of my career, that's tragic, you know? So, but it's also, I wanted it to be good because this is my first impression I'm going to be giving everyone forever.
Right. A lot of people don't understand that. Artists a lot of times don't get that. What you put out, everything you put out is your portfolio, is your resume. It is who you are as a professional in this industry, absolutely, and how you're going to be seen and perceived and the respect you're going to be given or not. So I agree, and you're coming out strong, man. Coming out very strong.
I would get a lot of feedback from people because I'd have stuff in my head that I thought was clear, and then if people were like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. What do you mean? This doesn't, and then I realized, okay, if I'm in a room with 5 people and no one's picking up what I'm putting down, that's because I'm failing to communicate.
There you go.
I would take a lot of harsh feedback and rewrite it over and over. And obviously, you don't want to do too much. I did a lot, but you want to make it to the point where your vision comes through. And
that's why you can't edit your now. And that's why you can't edit your own book, even if you're a good editor, because you know what's going on, so it clouds your judgment to say, well, do they understand what I'm conveying here? So I agree with you, but it takes
needs to hire an editor. Everyone.
Yes, but it takes a lot of character for you to step back and recognize if 5 people are telling me this is the issue, then it's not 5 people are wrong. Maybe I need to look at how I conveyed this. Yeah. And that's why you're going to put out a quality book. That's why this is going to be an excellent book, because you have put your ego aside, because at the end of the day, our egos mean nothing. It's the story. Mm-hmm. The story matters. That's it. So I commend you on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very important to me that I get that done. That I got feedback. It matters. All this stuff matters. You can't just...
And honest feedback. You don't want placaters. You don't want people who are going to tell you how great you are, because then you'll never be great.
Yeah, exactly.
But just want to remind everybody, if for whatever reason you don't think this is for you, although I don't see how, and you want to still support indie creators, you can pledge an amount without a reward. If you really want to just support Vaughn, throw $5, $10 in there. Mm-hmm. That's available as well if it's not your thing. But I honestly think you should give the book a try.
Yeah.
If I know, just being a writer and creator myself, as much as we need to make money to continue making the books, guys, we just want to share our stories with the world.
Exactly.
We just want you to read it and hopefully enjoy it, and we want to hear you say, I relate to that character, or that scene was awesome, or we want you to have the same passion and excitement for the stories we tell as we do for the ones that we've read, Yeah. And that's what's more important to us, that our story gets out there. So it's a small investment, but it helps a lot. And it also supports the industry, because Vaughn is hiring a team, and you're supporting them too.
And I have enough stories where, man, if it were up to me, if I could just keep making enough, I would have issues coming out as often as I possibly could, which would mean I'd have to hire, I'd love to get what Claremont had, where he'd have him, okay, like this, Philip will be my main artist, but I have had people that would be like, I'd love to do an arc or a standalone. Like, look at, Claremont would have this. Oh, we got Life Death. That's Barry Windsor Smith. Or how about that one issue where it's Wolverine gets a crap kicked out of him by Wounded Wolf, where it's Lady Deathstroke. Like, if I can get issues like that eventually, I want my first arc, and then after that, I'll continue. I have stories in plan, but I also have ideas where it's like, hey, I could team up with someone. What do you say we do a little arc here? I would love to do that, but obviously, one step at a time.
And that's what's hard as a creator. You have all these stories you want to tell, and it's just maddening not to get them out there, right? And get them out there right away.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But what made you decide to go with such a large book as opposed to a standard 24 floppy, and then just make it, break this up into 3 issues, say?
To be frank with you, it's because I had a point that I wanted to get to, because it was written as 3 at one point, and then I thought, okay, if I was just a fan on the shelf, I really liked the first 20-something pages, but I was like, is this enough? I want it to be guaranteed that you will be back. Not even just you will be back, you'll be satisfied with your purchase. I feel like there's a lot of issue ones that didn't go anywhere. And honestly, I was inspired by, so look at, when I say start with Claremont's run, technically I'm not even saying that. Start with Giant Size X-Men, right? It's a big issue,
Right.
but you get to know all the characters, and then you get this fight at the end, right? You have that Excalibur, A Sword is Drawn, or you have the New Mutants graphic novel. I wanted to give you people something like that, where there's the 3-act structure, and okay, not everything is resolved by the end of this issue, but enough where I could say I did the hero's journey chart. Like sometimes I'll print those out and I'll be like, this point, did I do this? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So there's a hero's journey here, and it's part of a larger hero's journey, right? Like if you see this, he doesn't even have his costume yet, because I decided I wanted, even though it could be detrimental sales wise to not have him have a cool costume, I felt like he didn't, from a story standpoint, he didn't earn it yet.
I think that's good of you, though. I don't think spandex has to be every superhero either, you know? At least, again, like you said, this is the origin story. So I think that is part of a natural progression of growth as well. So I don't think that's bad at all. I don't think it should be a deterrent to anyone.
Yeah, I really wanted him to earn the right to be a hero. And so he has this little makeshift costume. And then he's not ready yet. And then he's going to be on a team of characters that are better than him. And I like having a character that, and I think this really sums up what superheroes mean to me, is that he's chasing an ideal that these guys are literal war heroes mixed with superheroes. The guy who is his biggest hero is a literal knight in shining armor. You know, this isn't a crazy, with angelic wings. This is a crazy ideal to live up to. And it's like, he's going to try, and he might fail, but he wants to reach.
Hey, Greg.
He's going to keep messing up. And the thing about him too is he's a very impulsive character. Now you give someone like that super speed, that's a recipe for disaster. And,
right.
You know, he's going to make his mistakes, much like how I made tons of mistakes. Now that I've made tons of mistakes, my thing is and everyone can create garbage. My point is this: if you're a comic book writer, right? It's okay if you write garbage. Don't publish garbage. You can rewrite it. Get it out of your system. That's okay. There are earlier drafts from like, ugh. I'm like, I did like over 10 pages on a bullying scene. What? This is ridiculous, you know? And that's okay, because I didn't publish it, because I had other people. And I would tell myself, even other people, they'd be like, oh, I like the scene. I go, no, that's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. And I'd go back and I'd keep rewriting, and eventually hit a point where I had to stop and say, no, this is enough. This is good enough.
Yeah, that's what I always say to people too. And don't be intimidated to write, because you don't have to show anyone if you don't want to, and you can edit, you can rewrite. You're not etching it in stone like the 10 Commandments, for crying out loud. You just write what you feel like writing, and then go back as many times as you need to polish it up before you feel it's ready to show to anyone. Don't be intimidated to write down your ideas. So let me ask you, in writing this character, Gravenite, that's his name, right?
Galvanite,
like sorry.
Galvanite,
yeah. As in galvanization. Gotcha.
Yeah.
But how much of him is you?
No resemblance. No, I'm kidding. You know, it's interesting. He was pulled very heavily from me. I equate it to almost like he's birthed from me, but at the end of the day, he does have to walk his own path, because what's the point of escapism if I go into my creative project and I'm literally just writing a one-to-one of me? I'm like, right. Well, and everyone's a one. So I would tell people there'd be characters that are inspired by my friends, and that helped me bring the characters to life. There were characters inspired by my family that helped. I wanted to be enough to where it felt personal to me, because, for example, you know, and this is just getting into the personal side, as I was writing this, I never pictured the character with a father figure, but I never had an explanation. And I was always like, you know, it's already too close to me as is. You know, one of the friends is based on my best friend growing up. Blah, blah. There was a lot of stuff that was similar to my life. Actually, the mom I was going to make blonde to be different from my life. My mom who's a redhead, was like, no, she better be a redhead. I'm like, all right, fine. She's a redhead. You know? But she was like, you know, if you're going to do your mom, she better be a redhead. And I was like, okay. But, like, for example, I gave the character a little brother to keep that idea of, he's based on my cousin, but also to keep that idea of lineage, right? So, but the character, I felt like he was missing something, right? You look at Batman and Superman and Spider-Man, like, they'll lose these father figures. or they'll have this tragedy. And I thought, well, why did I get into superheroes? What drives me as a person? Because what drives me, even if it's not the same as my character, if I go in, if I could look at my own values, it could help me construct someone else's values. And I thought about it, and I also thought about, well, why, if this is my thesis, my love letter to superheroes, remove all the lore stuff and all of that. Like, let's get down to the core of the idea. Why do I love superheroes so much? When did I first get into them? It was before even I was into comics. And I thought about it, and it was honestly very personal to me. So, like, I lost my dad in 9/11, and I was in a place where I was very angry at the world and hurt because it was just some awful people, did this to me. And then I found solace in these superheroes because they showed these characters that could lose father figures or lose loved ones and take that loss and use it to make the world a better place, or characters that would work to stop the kinds of people like the ones that took my dad. And there was something so comforting and so inspiring about that idea. And that they'd honestly, as corny as it sounds, they inspired me day to day. I'd think about, like, even standing up to bullies, I'd channel my superhero who'd stand up to bad guys. And they gave a kid a reason to smile who really needed one. And so I pulled from my life in that. And that was the most important thing I think I ever pulled from my life, was that. And I decided I was going to dedicate the book to my dad. He's the one character that I was like, I want to make sure his face looks like my dad's face, and that he actually, like, I designed him. He's a blonde character, but like, he wasn't literally designed after, right? He was this character. And I decided, well, it would make sense in the story if he fought during World War III. Let's make him a badass. Was my dad liked action movies. So I decided to add that detail. But what part of it was pulled from me? I'd say the heart of it, the story was pulled from me. A lot of it was pulled from me, but at a certain point, if I were to give you an exact percentage of what's me and what's not, look, I mean, it's all me in the sense that it all comes from me. But at the end of the day, he couldn't be a one-to-one. And I'd actually start getting excited when I have the character do something. I'd be like, wait a minute, I'd never do that. And I go, oh, all right. So why is he different from me in this way? So by comparing him to me, it almost made me, it made my writing for him better. They say write what you know, but it'd be like, well, I wouldn't do this for this reason. So what would it say about him if he did do this? And it would get exciting. Like, for example, I feel like if I got superpowers, I'd probably show my power. But my main character, when I was writing the script, it was like, he doesn't. I'm like, oh, well, what does that say about him?
Right.
And that kind of stuff was great. So what percentage of him is me? I don't know. Probably a lot, but the point was that the character had to be good. And I had to step outside myself and look at him objectively. I'd be like, does this character have a clear goal?
Right.
Well,
I mean, those are good approaches too, right? The comparisons and the contrasts to create the character. A little bit of you, a little bit of somebody else. We've met so many people in our lives. We have an abundance of resource, to take from personality wise. So, and there is no wrong, So I think that's great. And again, the exterior art looks fantastic, guys. This book has sold over 500 copies already. It did how much on Fund My Comic?
It is currently sitting at 12.7, about to hit 12.8K.
Very nice. And that's a first time out, man. And then you're making money here on Kickstarter and you have it on Indiegogo. That's fantastic. Michael says, howdy.
It's gone.
Angel says, good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
You're the character in my life, Angel. I am going to back this tonight.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
And you should all back. Yeah, I've been waiting for it to come to Kickstarter. You told me it was going to come to Kickstarter. That's why I didn't get it on Fund My Comic, because for some reasons, I always have problems when I try to pledge on Fund My Comic. I got to talk to Luke. But
yeah, you're not the only one, actually. I've had people. That's why I decided to launch an Indiegogo and Kickstarter as well.
It's not working for me. So Kickstarter's easy, it's perfect. I just hit back this project. Everything's in there. It's good to go. Matthew Cole said, "What's up, bro?"
How's it going?
Another creator. What's going on, Matthew?
Yeah, this is another reason why one of the best bits of advice I could give is when you launch a campaign, get on as many shows as possible. You may think, oh, these two people have the same audience. Not all. There'll be new names I'll see in every chat. It's
Listen,
like, what if it's
we can
5
turn
new
away.
people?
Yeah, we can't turn away one, right? One
Yeah.
follower at a time. You want me to play this trailer?
Sure.
All right, let's play this trailer. Let me know if there's any issues with the sound.
When the whole world was dragged into World War III, brave men like my father fought on the front lines. And they weren't alone. That was 20 years ago. Now it's up to us to carry on their legacy. And every so often, the earth from which we come gives way for something new, something greater to be born, and with them, even greater threats to face. Bring it on! Phenomenova. For you, Dad. For you.
I tell everybody, if you want to get an understanding of how serious this person is about their comic or what kind of quality you're going to get, look no further than the trailer.
Yeah, I had to put my film degree to use.
But that's my point is if someone's willing to put in that much effort into the trailer, just imagine what they put into the comic. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I mean, the music is inspiring, the narration, obviously the art is fantastic. You look at that trailer, and if that doesn't kind of pump you up a bit and get you into it, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what would, because it's awe-inspiring. I love the emotions of it, the music, the build-up, everything. So I just want everybody to go back this book. Like I said, I've gotten to work with you, and I've gotten to know you. I met you at Baltimore last year or 2 years ago. And I will be the first to tell everyone, Vaughn has a sincere, not just passion, but curiosity for comics. Oh, yeah. And it's that curiosity that makes him a student of comics, reading and loving the history, something a lot of people don't do of all ages. And that just enriches his storytelling. And he has a great inspiration for writing this book, which is very personal to him, which always means his passion, and he knows how to put a good book together. So all I want to say is, if you don't back his book, I'm going to toilet paper your house. All right, so
you're not supposed to tell them that, Phil. That's supposed
to and I know where most of you live. Now you see, this is $887 with a $500 goal. He's already funded, but I want you guys to know this is blowing up big on Fund My Comic. It's at almost 13,000 over there. He's on 3 campaign platforms right now. Pick your favorite platform and pledge. It doesn't matter what you use, as long as you're supporting Vaughn and you want to get a good quality book.
Oh, yeah.
So before we go tonight, I'm going to give you the floor. Tell us why we want this book.
So if you want, in an age, I always say this, an age of deconstruction and cynicism and pessimism, if you want a story that's uplifting and a story that harkens back to the ideals that made this genre special, this is it. This is the start of something new. It says witness the birth of a new phenomenon, and that's my goal. My goal is to create something that I want to last forever. Longevity, I think, is one of the best things about the comic book medium. You know, a film franchise, a long-running film franchise, even still doesn't pales in comparison to a long-running comic book franchise. You know, I want to do something that it goes forever, but I want to do it where I have solid enough issue one that will make you want the next one and the next one and the next. And I have this passion for the medium that I hope bleeds through the page, and I think it will. I've been told it will. So whether you're new to comics and want to get something into, or if you're feeling like, man, superheroes aren't doing it for me anymore, I hope to reawaken that spark in you with this book. And yeah.
Awesome. Where can we find you, Vaughn?
So just look at my name, Vaughn Coleman, or my company is Rebel Oasis Studios, or you can find Rebel Oasis. Those, I have socials for all of those. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. And my YouTube channel is just my name, Vaughn Coleman. I have guests on my show a lot. Tomorrow I'm going to be having Vaughn Marion on my show.
Oh, he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, I met him recently. Super nice guy.
Fantastic artist.
Oh my God. I'm going to back his book soon.
Oh, he's insane. Yeah. And he's a lot like us. He just has this childlike love for comics, Vaughn Marion, and that's why I'm definitely excited about his book. He's one of my favorite artists. I've known him for, I think, 10, 12 years now. He's a friend of mine. A good guy. Really, one of the good ones. Very cool.
Yeah, no, it's really cool.
All right.
He seems like a nice guy. I met him at Garden State the second time, and I met him at Heroes Con. We talked about video games for a while. In fact, so much so that I bought stickers to put on my portfolio.
Nice.
Tifa. He's a big fan, and yeah.
Yeah, he's like a Smallville kind of guy. He looks like a surfer dude, but he's like a Smallville guy. He's just humble American Pie kind of guy. He's a good dude. Yeah, very good dude. Nice guy. Yeah. And he's also very tall, if you don't realize.
I guess I never really thought of it. I guess he is pretty tall, yeah.
If you stood up next to him, he's tall. Anyway, Vaughn, man, I'm happy for your success. Congratulations. I look forward to getting this book and reading it. And, you're always welcome to tag me in any of your posts that, even if you get one new follower or backer, And
same with you. If you want to tag me in anything, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you. And, you're welcome back when you start doing the next one. Because
good.
Big things are coming. And I'm serious when I say the indie community needs guys like you. Who care about comics and storytelling, and if we're gonna get readership to grow again, it starts with books like Phenomenova. So come on, guys, Come back it, check it out, and come along for the ride.
Absolutely. And if you ever want to come on my show, you're more than welcome to. Just reach out.
Thank you. Yeah, for whatever reason, most people are usually too busy for me to be on their show, but they always ask me to be on.
I'll make time.
I appreciate it.
But no, I'll make that.
I appreciate it. Vaughn, man, it was good talking to you. Much success. Keep going. I'm going to actually back this once we get off the video. And I'm excited to read this. I am, because I can feel that it's just going to be a fun, enjoyable ride. So, and that's what we need, right? Let's get away from all the world for a while. Let's have some fun.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to do, create this horrible future, World War III, that could have been the end of the world, and then we escaped it through heroes. Right. And that's what ultimately, I think, makes superheroes special.
Awesome. All right, guys, you know where to go. You know to hit that green button, back this project, and you know that I'll toilet paper your house if you don't. So, Vaughn, I will see you on the flip side. I'm going to throw you backstage, and then I'll be ending the show.
Sounds good.
All right, take care.
See.
So that was Vaughn Coleman, guys. Please go check him out. Follow him. Back Phenomenova. I'm going to show you one last time real quick. Phenomenova is live on 3 platforms: Fund My Comic, Indiegogo, and Kickstarter. Right now we have the Kickstarter up, but you can go to any one of those platforms and pledge. You will not be disappointed. Guys, for $20 or $25, depending on what cover you get, you're getting 60 pages, 65 pages of story, 64 pages. That's a lot. So, this is a guy who loves comics. The art is fantastic. He's a solid writer. and his passion is going to show. So go check out Phenomenova or else. All right. So I'm going to just be brief and let you know that thank you to everyone who pledged and backed Tragedy 6. The campaign ended. We are appreciative of all of you. To remind you, it is our last Kickstarter for Tragedy. Tragedy will not be crowdfunded going forward because coming 2025, we will be monthly in comic stores at a $4.99 retail. So when we make the announcement, we ask that you tell your comic store to order it. But we will be doing some Tragedy villain one-shots that are going to be awesome. We're going to be doing Dynamics, Withered, bunch of other books. Arcane Syndicate's coming in September, October, and man, I'm excited for that book. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's getting great reviews. Check it out. And I'm still hoping to get Papa out there for my dad who just passed. I still hope to get that out. Anyway, and one last thing. We sold all of the 11x17 hardcover sequential art books, so I'm going to go into second printing because we have a few more people that want. So thank you to all of you who have supported that. It is greatly appreciated. Please know that I humbly, gratefully, sincerely appreciate everyone that spends their hard-earned money on my books and my stories. Thank you for helping me make my dream come true. And help people like Vaughn make his come true, continue to contribute and back and support. Phenomenova, live now, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, fund my comic. I'm going to leave you with what I always leave you with, the legendary, and have fun storming the castle.